Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we are taking a look at the 2020 Overwatch League season week 2 picks. I'm going to be making my week 2 picks. With the outbreak of the coronavirus in China, all of the Chinese homestands in February and March were canceled. So there's only one homestand this weekend, which means there's only 4 matches this weekend. I don't know what their plan is to make up all these games that are supposed to have been taking place in China. I couldn't tell you. It's a little weird and a little confusing, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with those. Hopefully by next week's picks video, so a week from today, we'll have more information and I can talk about it, because I think the fact that they're just not playing them is going to be something that's a pain to make up in the long run. So unless they just start, adding on an extra game or two at each of these homestands that these teams are playing at, which I guess is possible, that's probably the way they're going to have to do it, is because each day they may have to add an extra game or two to the schedule just to try to make up some of these games that they missed. But we'll see what happens over time. I don't know. These teams may just be behind the Atlantic Conference teams for a while, all these Pacific Conference teams. But we'll see. But let's jump into it. Let's take a look at the matches that are going on in Philadelphia this weekend. So here we go. Let's start with Saturday, February 15th. The first match is the Florida Mayhem taking on the Houston Outlaws. This is a very tough one for me to pick, actually. I really like what the Houston Outlaws have done. I think that their changes are really good. Florida Mayhem are an interesting team. One of the things that has really motivated me right now to pick them in a situation where we have no reason to pick any one team or the other, because we don't know anything about them. We haven't really seen them in their metas, anything like that. In an interview with Sideshow, both Sinatra and Super were asked teams that people aren't really talking about that they think are going to be really good, or that they think are pretty good. They both said the Florida Mayhem. So the Florida Mayhem are a team that looked pretty good from perspective of the best team in the league. So that to me was a reason why to pick them. I have nothing against the Houston Outlaws. I just think that the Florida Mayhem, things seem like they're going to be pretty good, and with so many question marks and just questions in general, hearing people say something like, oh, the Mayhem are better than what people think they are, makes me want to pick them, just because I think that they probably have the advantage for that reason. Moving on to the second game on Saturday, we have the Washington Justice taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. I am picking the Philadelphia Fusion for this one for 2 reasons. One, I think they're the better team in general. I think they have a very good roster. I believe they were number 6 in my power rankings, so I think they have a good team. And I think when you put them in front of their home crowd, that really is going to be the thing that really gives them the boost. Now, obviously, not every team does really well against their home crowd. We saw Dallas Fuel this past weekend struggle, even though they were in front of their home crowd. But I look at the Fusion roster, and I really like what they've done. I think that they're a much better team this season than they were last season, or even in 2018. This is the best Fusion roster I think we've ever seen. I think they are going to be one of the top teams in the league, and especially in the Atlantic Conference. So I don't really think they're going to struggle with this match in particular, because I think they are pretty good. I think they look like a team that is going to be very good. So I don't think they're going to lose this one, because it doesn't really seem like something they would do at this point in the season to a team that I don't think is really that good. So that's that. Let's move on to Sunday, February 16th, where I have my big pick game, which is the Washington Justice against the Houston Outlaws. My opinions on the Washington Justice have really changed a lot since I made my power rankings. I'm not as high on them as I was. I was just kind of getting caught up in this whole thing of like, oh, well, they have Corey and Stratus. But I think everything else on this team is kind of lackluster, and I think there's so much that could go wrong with this team. that I'm a little hesitant to really say that they're as good as I originally had them. And then there's teams that I feel better about. But them against the Houston Outlaws is a very interesting matchup. I've been saying for a while that I think people are way too low on the Houston Outlaws. People are too critical of the Houston Outlaws. They're not kind of looking at the changes they made, I think, and really accepting how good they are. I mean, you bring in Meko and Jexa and Repel. That's a really, really, really good set of changes. You bring in Hydration. You have Dante still. You have Muma. Like, that's a good roster. It's just a matter of how well that roster comes together. And that may take some time, which I think is what people are really kind of hammering in. But this is a match where I want to pick the Washington Justice just because I feel like they have their chances, I think, of working well together right off the bat are slightly higher. I think their roster isn't the best. I think it needs a lot of work, and I think their coaching is not as good as the Houston Outlaws. But I just feel like with the way the meta is and the heroes that have been really good in this meta right now, I mean, which is pretty much anything, but with Mei being as prominent as she is, and we're seeing some Widowmaker, we're seeing some McCree, we're seeing some Reaper, we're seeing a little bit of everything pretty much. I think some of Corey's best heroes are going to be playable, and I think that really benefits this team because when they were the best last season was when Corey and Stratus could play the best heroes, or their best heroes, which are really good in the meta. Stuff like Mei and Hanzo and Reaper and McCree. So I'm picking the Justice because I think that right now they're the safer bet. That is my big pick game, so we'll see what happens, but that's my pick for that game. Finally, the second match on Sunday is the Florida Mayhem taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. Last season, the Mayhem lost their first match. Philadelphia won their first match. They met for both of their second matches, and the Florida Mayhem upset the Philadelphia Fusion. I don't think that happens again. I think the Fusion are a much better team than what the 2019 Fusion were. And while I think the Mayhem are pretty good, I think the Fusion... I mean, you just look at the roster. It's stacked. Carpe and EQO. Right? Sato and Fury. I mean, you can say what you want about Sato. I've never been the highest on Sato, but a lot of people have been trying to convince me otherwise. I haven't seen enough to not think otherwise, but we'll see. And then you have Funny Astro and Alarm. That's a really good roster. I really like what they've done, and we'll see what else they do. You know, I don't know if you know, we're gonna see Carpe Ivy playing, or even like Hisu isn't of age yet. But when Hisu's of age, maybe it's a Doomfist meta and they bring out Chipsa. I have no idea what they're gonna do, but I really like what this roster is. I like what they've done, and I think they're really good. I think they're gonna perform well in front of their home crowd. And I think we're going to be seeing this team have a really good weekend, just like we saw New York have a good weekend at their homestand this past week. So unfortunately, that is all the matches that are to come this week. Only 4, which is a little annoying. I wish there were more, but there's not. I'm excited to see how these teams play. Obviously, we've only seen a handful of teams play so far. So, I'm excited to see how some of these other teams play when they actually, you know, hit the stage this weekend. And then who knows when we'll get to see some of these Pacific teams again. I know it'll be a little while. I believe the next time we see any Pacific team play is week, 5. Which is kind of weird. Also, we don't see Atlanta play until week 4, so that's also kind of weird. But the next time we see any Pacific games is in Seoul, week 5. So I guess we'll have to wait until then for anything more on all these Pacific teams. So we'll see. It kind of makes things weird for me talking about some of these things, but we'll figure it out as we get there. But that's everything I have for you today. Let me know down below your own picks, what you think is going to happen. But I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Hope you all watch some really great Overwatch League matches. And until next time, I'm going to get out of here. So, bye-bye.